Hey everyone, welcome back to K-Korner, the channel where we dive into the wild world of entitled people and their unbelievable stories. Hope you enjoy it, and without further ado, let's go. This is a long story, and I don't even know where to begin with it. 2 years ago, my husband helped a lot of people in our neighborhood with some basic handyman repairs. That's the type of guy he is. One of the neighbors he helped out was our HOA president. She started begging him to join the board. January rolls around, he gets voted on. Over the past year, he's made it his mission to talk to neighbors, to resolve issues, often preemptively rather than having the property management company send letters. As an example, there was a family that kept getting fines because they filled out their ARC form incorrectly. English wasn't their native language, and he sat down and helped them fill it out correctly. The HOA president had went on a racist rant about them, and I don't think she would have been satisfied with anything less than making them tear down their addition. Around the time summer rolled around and my husband put together a community cookout, she saw how popular he was with neighbors, and she started to feel threatened. She began making decisions for the neighborhood without consulting with the board. At the same time, she and her buddy start making a huge deal about our yard. Our house was a rental for tennis years, and the owner neglected all routine maintenance. The yard is about 80 weeds. Before we moved in to rent, we asked for something to be done about the yard. Nothing was done. While we were renting, we asked the property management company to force the owner to comply. They wouldn't do anything. When we bought the house, the first thing we did was contract with a weed control service. It's still a problem, but we have plans for our yard. They just don't happen on Karen's schedule. A guy made it known that he intended to vote my husband in as president. The president's BFF resigns because she refuses to be on a board with a president that doesn't follow the rules. Tonight was their first meeting of the year, and the president refused to allow the board to vote on members. The kicker is that our HOA covenants are actually quite lenient compared to many communities you read about here. Our lawn is perfectly fine, and we've never been fined over our lawn. This happened over 3 years ago, and while telling it to my friend, she laughingly said such a malicious compliance, so decided to share here. When I first started my very first corporate job, there was a kitchen full of utensils and fridge and oven and stove, and a dishwasher. A full-fledged kitchen for employees to make tea, coffee, heat their meals, even cook. They said I can bring my own glasses and put them there or use the company's. Also, there was a woman who was working in the kitchen. Let's call her Nilly, and she puts rules willy-nilly like a bully. Second day of my job, dear Nilly told me, let me remind you that no one should leave their dirty dishes in the sink. I was surprised by the claim. Since I am new and don't know a single shit, I thought this might be her way of bullying, or it might be actually true. So I smiled and asked if this means I have to wash my own glasses. She said, yes, don't make me repeat it twice, honey. Let me remind you, there's a dishwasher. If she isn't cleaning the dishes, her only remaining job is vacuuming the office once a week and bringing tea coffee to chiefs, to meetings, and to managers. So I decided to gather information and wait on it. Apparently, Nilly has been working in the company for 20 years and knows the CEO. She knows how he drinks his tea, how he drinks his coffee when he drinks them, what he eats with his coffee and tea. She knows all of them. If I know one thing, that is never fight a fight with the person who knows how your boss likes his coffee, especially if you're replaceable. So fight was not an option. Cool. I also learned that once a week CEO brings a bag of fruits to the kitchen to share in the company. Apparently he has a fruit garden and goes there for weekends. And she would take fruits to her house at the end of the day. Old employees knew that. They would take 1 or 2 in the day. That's how I learned this. She said to me I can get one from, but it is hers. So I refused the first-time offer, thinking she bought it, then learned that it was brought by CEO. I think she implied that CEO brought it to her, and she was generous enough to share it with us peasants, but this is my interpretation of her statement. One thing about me, I look young and naive. I look dumb, as if there is some missing component in my brain. Cue malicious compliance. From my desk, I could partially see the kitchen if I turn around. So, on the day of fruit delivery, I was constantly checking the kitchen. When CEO came in, I counted 30 and went in as well. To wash my glasses, of course. I went in and said hi to everyone. This was my first time seeing CEO, so he said you must be new, kindly and respectfully informed who I am. And he told me who he was. I said, sir, I've checked the company before entering and knew him, which he liked. After I turned to wash my dishes. He asked me what I was doing, and I said, "Oh, I was informed that all the staff washed their own dishes." At the same time, our Nilly said I must have mistaken that while laughing and taking the sponge and glasses out of my hand. I said, "But you," as if shocked, and cut myself as if realization hit me, then smiled like she is my best friend. Of course, I didn't stop there. I looked at the fruits CEO told me to take some fruits, added that he brought them to the company so all the staff could enjoy. I haven't said anything, but from my expression, the CEO asked what was wrong. I told nothing and told I always thought they were Nilly's since. Then I just smiled and asked if I can take a plate of them. With a huge plate of fruit accompanied by a huge smile, I went to my desk, shared them with my team. I don't even like fruits. A couple hours later, I went to kitchen, and our dear Nilly told me I had misunderstood things and washing dishes was her job, and I shouldn't mistake again. And added fruits were for everyone to share, and I should have taken more if I wanted. I stupidly said, "Oh, I didn't know," and how sorry I am to cause her trouble with a sorry smile. Guess who never had to wash dishes and had fruits to eat every day? If your answer is Cleopatra, probably yes, but also me. Nilly would also bring tea and coffee to me from time to time if someone she served did not want to drink. I would thank her with a huge smile and take it. Apparently, she does this to all the employees she likes. I, 28, am autistic. Just wanted to spend some time relaxing in our local swimming pool. I had black goggles and like to swim underwater. I also like to simply rest against the poolside and chill. Also, I was the only adult male without any children in this pool, which is clearly for everyone to use, shallow at one end, deep at the other, etc. I'm just resting by the poolside when a manager, not even a lifeguard, a bloody manager, comes over to me and tells me my presence and behavior is making someone uncomfortable. He explained that someone had complained that me diving underwater and simply sitting by the side of the pool was apparently unacceptable because I was apparently doing this to peep on children. He told me this in a non-accusatory tone and seemed to sound as confused as me about this. At first I thought I was upsetting some over-worried parent, and being a parent myself, I felt horrible. I explained that I was just relaxing by the poolside, offered to take off my goggles to put them at ease, and even wanted to apologize to this person. The manager seemed to accept this and presumably went back to the parent to let them know I was sorry for upsetting them. About 10 minutes passed and the manager was back, telling me the police had arrived. I was shocked and asked if it was about me. The manager said yes and that they wanted to talk to me. This is when I met the entitled dad for the first time. Big guy, maybe early to mid-30s and pretty buff looking. This is the only time he spoke to me, and all he said was, "You better go quietly or I'll tell everyone here you're a pedophile." He walked away before I could reply, and the manager led me out the pool. I felt tempted to flip this Kevin the Bird as I walked by, but I kept my cool and just left. I get to the locker rooms and 2 policewomen were waiting. Fortunately for me, they were really nice and friendly with me the whole time. After grabbing a towel, they started asking me what happened and what I was doing. I was honest and told them I was just trying to relax and had no idea I was upsetting this person just by being there. I even told them I was autistic, which led to one of the officers telling me they had a family member who was also autistic. They then asked me for my details to run me through their database. While that went on, the entitled dad walked by and one of the officers asked to talk with him. He agreed and they went elsewhere. I got changed back into my clothes, and as I was coming out the changing room, the entitled dad was in my way with his back to me. I couldn't quite hear what he was saying over the other people in the room, but I did hear him rather loudly order his kids to stay put while he went to get changed. He walked off without seeing me, and I left the locker room. The police stayed with me in the lobby until their database come back. Of course, it came back that I had no history of crime, and the gym staff had told the officers I had no history of disturbing other people, and I was free to go. However, the entitled dad was hanging around near the back of the lobby watching me. The police saw this too and offered to give me a ride home since I'd walked to the gym. I accepted since I was pretty shell-shocked by the whole ordeal and worried this guy would try something on my way home. And all this was a really scary experience, and I'm still shaking typing this. I'm just glad the manager and the police were professional enough to let me speak my piece. I should mention there were other parents in the pool who didn't care about my presence. Another dad and his kids were playing right next to me, and he didn't care. Edit. Holy cow. I did not expect this post to be seen by so many people. Thanks so much for the support, guys. Let me give you a small update. I went back to the gym today to see if the same manager was on duty. Thankfully he was, and he took me aside to explain his perspective on things. I'll call him Mike, not his real name. Apparently this Kevin seemed to be trouble from the start, being very irate with Mike as well as other staff members. The only reason it wasn't the lifeguards dealing with him was because they were scared of him, being 17 to 18 years old, and this guy was an early 30s looking buff man. Even Mike, who was roughly the same age as Kevin, was concerned with his behavior, thinking if he got near me that we'd end up throwing hands. When Mike first told him that I had offered to leave my goggles off so I wouldn't dive underwater, that apparently wasn't good enough, then when the police arrived, Mike had actually just told them he was concerned for my safety. Nothing about the pedophile accusation. No wonder they were so nice. I then asked Mike if at any point he thought I really was a threat to the kids. He laughed and said no, saying that when I had mentioned I had kids of my own, the fact that I had offered to apologize and attempt to de-escalate things, he could tell I wasn't dangerous. He was thinking more about me being safe than whether or not I was a threat. The police seemed to think that way too. At one point after I left, the Kevin was getting mouthy again, and a receptionist chewed him out for his actions. Wish I could have seen that. Then Mike asked if I made it home okay, and I told him about the police giving me a ride. Their car wasn't in sight of the building. He was relieved and hoped this event hadn't put me off coming back. I do plan to come back to this gym now since I can count on the staff to have my back now. But yeah, everything is cool now, and everybody knows what a twat this guy is, so I don't think I'm in any further trouble anymore. Oh, and to answer why I left. I was given the choice whether to go or not. No one told me to leave. I was planning on leaving a few minutes before this encounter anyway, so I didn't mind too much. It was only when the police officer caught Kevin staring at me that they offered to give me a ride. Since someone in the comments suggested I ask for it, I asked if they had a police log number for what happened. Mike said they weren't given one, but offered to chase it up for me. I declined, not really wanting to put myself any further into an issue that seems more or less resolved anyway. Hope that clears a few things up. As I stepped out onto my porch, the familiar feeling of frustration washed over me. Over the past year, my family had been embroiled in a seemingly endless battle with the Homeowners Association, HOAA, the cause, a single vine plant nestled between our home's two AC condensers. It's overgrown, they claimed, but to me, it was barely noticeable, hidden from view by the condensers and neighboring houses. It was a petty issue blown out of proportion, yet it had become a thorn in our side, resulting in repeated fines of $250 each time. I sighed, surveying the yard. The vine had been trimmed back, its roots uprooted, yet still the complaints persisted. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about the principle. How could they penalize us for something they couldn't even see without trespassing onto our property? My gaze shifted to the neighboring houses, suspicion creeping in. Could it be one of them? Was someone deliberately targeting us? The thought gnawed at me, fueling a growing determination to uncover the truth. If it's my neighbor doing the reporting while standing on his own property, I muttered to myself, then there's nothing I can do. But if that's not the case, a plan began to form in my mind. I would fight fire with fire, employing a sneaky tactic of my own. Setting up a surveillance camera seemed like the logical next step. If they were going to accuse us unjustly, then I would gather evidence to prove our innocence. With renewed resolve, I set to work, positioning the camera discreetly at the corner of the house. It was a game of cat and mouse now, and I was determined to outsmart whoever was behind these frivolous complaints. Days turned into weeks as I monitored the footage diligently, waiting for any sign of suspicious activity. Each passing moment only fueled my determination further. I couldn't allow them to continue tarnishing our reputation and draining our finances over a non-existent issue. Then one evening, my patience was rewarded. The footage revealed a figure skulking along the edge of our property, a flashlight in hand. My heart raced as I watched, anger bubbling within me. So, it was one of our neighbors after all? Armed with undeniable proof, I wasted no time confronting the culprit. The look of shock on their face was priceless as I presented the incriminating footage. They stammered excuses, but their guilt was evident. In the end, justice prevailed. With the truth exposed, the HOA was forced to retract their fines, and we were finally granted the peace we had long sought. But more than that, we had reclaimed our dignity and integrity in the face of adversity. As I stood in my yard, bathed in the warm glow of victory, I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. We had overcome the odds, emerging triumphant in the face of injustice. And though the vine may have withered away, our resolve remained unbroken, a testament to the power of perseverance in the face of adversity. Enjoying the stories yet? If you do, please subscribe, like, and comment. Sometime around 2002, my wife and I moved into an 1,100 square feet condominium with 3 bedrooms and 2 baths. We were very fortunate to get this condominium as a second owner, and we paid only $114,000, $6,000 more than the original price. Our condo was on the 3rd floor, and all rooms were carpeted throughout the condo with only one small 4x4 square of linoleum inside the front door to the outside breezeway. This will become important later. And yes, even the bathrooms, kitchen, and dining room were carpeted. The front door opened to a large open space with vaulted ceilings, with the great room to the left and the dining room and kitchen to the right. The kitchen area was separated from the great room with a wall that had a cutout over the kitchen sink, and we had a long hallway directly going out of the great room to all the bedrooms and straight in front of the front door. We got to know some of the neighbors and got along well with most of them. The neighbors directly below us were a young couple that were attending university and were nice and cordial with us. Shortly after they graduated, they rented out their condo to her brother and his college friends. The brother was a decent guy, and we mostly had no problems except for one of his birthdays with their music and boisterous conversations and happy birthdays. Kept us up until 4:30 a.m. in the morning. My wife and I returned the favor by blasting our music the very next morning at 8:00, but we talked a couple of weeks later and all had a laugh about it and never had any real problems after that. Between 2004 and 2006, we changed all the flooring in the kitchen and dining room to ceramic tile, including the area in front of the front door, to avoid having to pay for carpet cleaning in the dining or kitchen area due to spills or our young daughter throwing food on the floor from her high chair. In 2007, our cordial neighbors sold their condo to an older newlywed couple, late 20s to early 30s. Now, if anyone has lived in between a first and a third floor condo or apartment, you will know that it is the worst place to be if you expect silence. With kids or music, you will always have some noise that filters through the floor or ceiling. I don't know what they were thinking or expecting when they moved in there. I was blissfully unaware that the condo had been sold until one day, about a month later, I brought home a powered subwoofer and hooked it up to my home theater sound system around 6 p.m. I promptly put on an action flick with some big explosions and sat down to enjoy the new and improved immersive sound. After a little bit of gunfire and 2 explosions, I hear the doorbell ding-dong. I get up and immediately hear ding-dong again. I walk 5 feet to my front door and open it to see my entitled neighbor. I'll call her Karen, standing on my doorstep. Me. Hi, can I help you? The very agitated Karen. My husband and I are trying to enjoy a quiet and peaceful dinner. Can you please turn down whatever show you are watching? We can hear everything that's going on. Me. Oh, sure. Sorry about that. She turned around and walked away. I closed the door, turned the subwoofer down a ways and the main volume down a bit and thought nothing of it. Shortly after the next round of gunfire and explosions, I hear the ding-dong and then some rapid fire knocking at my door. I pause my movie, and then I open the door to see Karen again. Me. Oh, hi. What can I do for you? Karen. We can still hear everything from your show. You need to turn it down now. At this point, I was a little fed up with her crap and decided to call her on it. Me. You say you can hear everything. Can you give me some of the last dialogue you heard? Karen. I don't know. I just know you were watching X show. She was totally wrong. Me. No. I'm actually watching a movie, and here are the last 3 lines of dialogue, and I gave her those lines. Me. It seems you can't hear my movie as well as you are claiming. Karen, with blazing eyes and red in the face. I don't care. It's too loud. You need to turn it down. Me. Actually, the noise ordinance says I don't have to turn it down until temp map. Karen, getting huffy. Fine. I guess my husband and I will have to go out to eat to get some peace and quiet. Me. In my most cheerful voice and waving. Have a good night. I then turned my subwoofer up a little and the main volume back up to its previous level and enjoyed the rest of my movie. The neighbors did end up going out that night for dinner or whatever. At our next HOA meeting, Karen stands up and complains long and loud about the noise. How she can hear kids jumping on the carpeted floor. We had a 4-year-old, and crying. We had a new baby. And hear us walking up and down our hallway and hear our music and movies and TV shows and how the Hispanic neighbors on the first floor play their music on Saturday morning, so loud they can't sleep in and argue so loud they can hear every word, etc. This went on for 6 months. Every time she complained, the HOA told her if it's between the hours of 8 a.m., 10 p.m., we can do nothing. If it's after 10 p.m. and before 8 a.m., you can call the police, and then the HOA would send out a letter by U.S. mail asking everyone to be cognizant of their neighbors and laying out the local city noise ordinance. I finally stopped attending the HOA meetings after month 3 of the same bullcrap. She never failed to visit at least once or twice in the week after these notices, and twice she taped them to my door. I also learned during this time that they were members of our church and had actually been assigned to visit us each month. They never did. Cue the pro-revenge. Around the 6-7 month mark of her constant complaints and harassment, and even a couple of visits from some very apologetic police officers after 11 p.m. at night, they said they could hear nothing outside of my condo door. We decided to upgrade our flooring. We knew this would inflame our entitled neighbor, but we didn't care as we were tired of the constant stream of complaints from them. We chose to extend the entry tile all the way from the front door, down the long hallway to the master bedroom door, and we wanted to tile the bathrooms as well. We also went with a light coffee-colored bamboo hardwood in our great room. So, demolition first. We tore out the carpet and tack strips and pried the base molding trim off the walls. As I'm removing the last of the nails from the walls and subfloor, about noon on a Saturday, wouldn't you know it, bang, 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 from the front door. Me, yes? Karen, can you keep it down? I'm trying to have a pampered chef party. Me, sure. I promptly finished pulling or driving in nails and then proceeded to bang my hammer all over the subflooring like I was driving loads of new nails for the next hour, and made sure to turn on my stereo to the local hard rock station and turn it up for the next 4 hours. FYI, the owner's floor neighbors were already blaring some great mariachi music. They did this every Saturday and Sunday as they cleaned their condo from top to bottom. We then rented a hardwood floor nailer that, in addition to compressor noise and to loudly drive a nail into the flooring and subfloor, also had to be struck with a large dead blow hammer. Bang, bang. It took us 2-3 days to install the coffee-colored bamboo hardwood flooring in the great room, and we were sure it was driving Karen absolutely batty. We ended up installing an awesome tile inlay down the hall. Had tile running from the front door to the master bedroom door along the great room side of the divider wall, tile in the dining room, kitchen, and both bathrooms. We got the base molding on, more nail gun and compressor fun, and caulked. The new floors looked amazing, and the bonus was every time a hard shoe, like my daughter's favorite Sunday shoes she wore everywhere every day, or high heel. My wife chose to learn how to do everything in 4 6-inch stilettos during this time. Struck the floor, it was like the impact echoed through our perfect floors. All this was due to our neighbor complaining. It was also in preparation to sell our condo as we had grown out of it by this time. We sold it within 1 month of listing at $160,000. During closing, the real estate agent for the new owners told us that the floors absolutely sold this place. We also sold at the very top of the real estate boom right before the real estate market crashed. We later learned from some of our neighbors that within 9 months of our selling our condo, the second floor entitled neighbors moved out and sold their condo for $30,000 less than we had, and took about an $8,000 loss, and sent a letter of complaint to the HOA stating their condo was unlivable because of the noise from our incredible floors. My cousins, 3 of them, have a teacher who I can say is really, really dumb. She has had events with 2 of my cousins and up until recently the 3rd one. If some of you don't know, I am European Asian. It's mostly 80-20. 80 German and 20 Indonesian. I look more white sometimes than the rest of my Asian side of the family, but there are some fun perks of being part Asian here. Now the teacher, my oldest cousin of my aunt's, recently started learning geography. He loves it, as do I. In class they were learning of Europe, and when the teacher pointed out Germany, my cousin of course excitedly said, "See, hey cool, fun fact, my cousin is half German." The teacher had such a sour look at him and said, "T, there is always a time to play pretend, but this isn't one of those times. Lying will no be tolerated." C, no, he really is real and half German. I have proof he came to visit for holiday. T, I will not tolerate lying in this classroom. Detention after school tomorrow. You will learn to stop lying. My cousin was, of course, visibly upset and later told his mom, my aunt, about the situation. Just so happens that while he was talking about the events, the teacher in question called my aunt to discuss my cousin's pathological lying in class. My aunt knew of this teacher quite well after she took a jab at her other 2 kids, so she was ready for the evidence to prove my existence. The next day after class, my cousin went to his detention and my aunt had a talk with the teacher. T, I called you here to discuss your apparent son's pathological lying. Yes, I'm aware of the situation. First off, T, your son started making claims that he has a German cousin. Playing pretend is fine, but not in the middle of a lesson. If he was an imaginary friend, then fine, but still, it's not fun for the other kids. I'm sorry to break your Clear Power trip, but my son does in fact have a German cousin, and he is my nephew. He is part Indonesian as well. I can show you pictures. So my aunt showed a bunch of family picture, including a picture of me and my biodad to prove he is in fact real, and I am the result of that with my mother. T, just like your son, typical liars. It's clear you got that off the internet. I will recommend a child psychiatrist for your son, as clearly his mother is just as incompetent. My aunt was pissed but not angry, even though the comments given was a bit too far. So as a last-ditch effort, she tried one last tactic, calling me and my mom. I answered immediately and my aunt explained the situation. I explained to the teacher of my clear existence in all three languages, Indonesian, German, and English. It's nice that your so-called aunt paid you to say this. Sorry, I don't believe it. She proceeds to click the hang-up button after saying that. Okay, this has happened with now 3 of my kids. Either you are having an issue with my family or you're just an a-hole. I am recommending you to the principal to either reassign you or get you fired. This is insane, despite all the evidence I have shown towards you. You need to get out more, lady. What do you think Germans look like? Asian? T. There is no need for vulgar language or being rude to me. I just simply don't believe the reality of your family. A. What the F does that even mean? Whatever. I am taking my kid out of detention because there is no reason to keep him there for simply telling the truth, regardless if you believe it or not. My aunt stormed out of the classroom and took my cousin out. My aunt was so pissed over the situation that after reporting the teacher to the principal, she bought my cousin McDonald's and 3 video games. My cousin is thinking of finding more teachers to piss off. My husband and I were recently in the big city for a visit with friends and family, but mostly for a work function for me. And we were having a work party I wanted to attend. While we were there, my husband requested we visit a few of the other locations in his chain of stores, as he's always curious how other managers do things differently to bring back to his own store. We went into one downtown and it was bumping. He chatted a little bit with the staff, but was mostly preoccupied looking at their selection of wares to see if there were any cool items they carried at their location that he didn't at his lower volume store. While browsing, he noticed a woman trying to grab an item from one of the higher shelves and offered to get it down for her. Once in his hand, he noticed it had a customization on it and pointed it out to the customer and mentioned it would cost a little bit more. Customer did not want the customization, and so he started flipping through the shelf to find one without. After handing it to her, she proceeded to start asking him about other items, which was when I walked over, gave him a smack, and playfully said, "You are so silly, you don't even work here." The customer was so embarrassed and apologized, assuming he worked there because he was dressed so similarly to the other staff. No dress code. But it's a sports store, so staff typically wear jerseys. And he happened to be wearing one that day, and because he so quickly and cheerfully helped her. My husband did also apologize, saying, "I do sort of work here. I work for the company, just at the store in our hometown. And since all the guys here seem busy, I thought I could at the very least be a nice person and help grab this for you, since I'm taller." In the end, we all had a good laugh, and my husband keeps insisting he didn't mean to go into retail mode while we ourselves were shopping. It's simply because he loves his job so much. After searching for an apartment for several months, I finally found a place that looked reasonable. Currently, I've been living with my elderly dad, caretaking for him, as he has some mobility issues and health issues. I've been doing so for the last year. Prior to that, I was living in an apartment and basically put my life on hold to help him. My mom passed away several years ago unexpectedly, and since then I've tried to help my dad, even though at times he can have some narcissism which has added to the difficulty of me taking care of and living with him. Not all the time, but sometimes. I had been apartment searching for months and had very little luck. It seems like everything was either extremely expensive in my area or far distance-wise or didn't look great. Or on the flip side, no one got back to me with my original inquiry. Finally, I found a place that was only 20 minutes away from my dad in a town that I do like, right on the beach, for a reasonable price. It was a studio apartment, so relatively small in size but seemed doable. When I went to go see it the first time, the current tenant was the one to show it to me. She seemed really nice and said it's a good apartment and that she's going to be living with her mom for the time being, and then in the summer moving to Arizona. When we were walking out, I saw that there were papers on the neighbor's door, and she mentioned they are being evicted. I didn't really feel comfortable asking follow-up questions or prying, which in retrospect I should have. I decide that I want to take the apartment. I speak to the landlord who lives in a different state via phone call. She tells me about the paperwork application I will need to fill out and that everything looks good. Her sister works in the office downstairs and handles a lot of the paperwork, so I met her as well. I had asked her for a copy of the lease just so I could look it over prior to putting down a deposit. I do so, and I noticed one of the things on the deposit was very unusual. It mentioned repairs in the building, but that the tenant would be responsible for $50 of the repair even if it were part of the building and not something they caused. I was very confused by the wording and asked her to elaborate on that, and she did so. I then told her I am very interested and would like to take a final walk through and bring my non-refundable holding deposit at that point if everything seemingly looks good, which I did so at that point. Everything about the apartment looked good and reasonable. I put down the holding deposit, which is the amount of rent, and she gives me a copy of the lease that I then have to get notarized, which I found to be unusual. Also, I found it unusual that the holding deposit and the security deposit she wanted in cash only. She said rent going forward could be in check, but that she wanted those in cash. Fast forward, I go back today and bring the lease signed and notarized and the security deposit in cash. I meet with the sister of the landlord in the office, and after she signs the documents and takes the money from me, we start having a conversation, and she's telling me about the area and the building in general. She then gets on to the layout of the neighbors and who is who. I tell her that it's okay if she doesn't feel comfortable sharing, but I'm just curious about the person being evicted. She then goes on a 20-minute conversation about how that woman has been a complete nightmare, how she was diagnosed with Huntington's disease, and apparently that's why the current tenant is moving out and other tenants have had a huge noise issue with her. She blasts music constantly. She's rude when they ask her to turn it down. She vacuums for 3 hours, banging her vacuum into the wall when people have work meetings when they work from home. After hearing this, I was extremely concerned. I tell her, thank you for her time, and I go out to my car and call my dad. I burst into tears because I felt so uncomfortable with finding out this information after signing the lease and putting down the money. He tells me I should go back in and tell her that why wasn't this disclosed to me prior to signing anything? I go back in and say that to the sister, and she says to me in response that the current tenant did tell me. I tell her that I knew of the person being evicted, but I had no clue as to why, and I'm very uncomfortable with this information. She then calls her sister, the landlord, and puts me on the phone with her. The landlord basically verbally attacks me, turning things around on me, saying that I have been wishy-washy the entire time, that I'm going to regret this, that it's a cute apartment and by the ocean, that she has never in her 52 years of doing this had someone be so wishy-washy. I felt very uncomfortable because I have a passive personality which she probably knew she could take advantage of, and I asked her, how have I been wishy-washy? She said because I wanted clarification of the lease and to see the apartment a second time. I felt incredibly uncomfortable in this scenario. She was still trying to push me to keep and take the apartment at that point, even though I tried to explain to her that I've had a really bad neighbor scenario before, and it was an absolute nightmare for me living in that. She tried to tell me that this would not be an issue and that they were already evicting the person, and the person might even be out by the time I move in next month. I told her that I knew sometimes evictions could take months or even up to a year, and I can't be in that kind of scenario. Long story short, I pretty much burst into tears after getting off the phone with her, even though I was still in front of the sister. I left, told my dad what happened, and he told me to give him her number so he could give her a call and speak about the deposit and getting it back. He did so. She lied, saying that I knew about this when I first saw the apartment, which is obviously untrue. It sounds like if she is going to be able to have a backup tenant and rent it right away, that she will get the money back. Otherwise, it might be an issue. I'm extremely on edge and uncomfortable about this entire thing. I've never been spoken to like that in my life, and I'm also extremely disappointed about not getting this apartment after searching for months. I felt like going into it, though, might be the wrong decision if I pretty much have confirmation this neighbor has been a living nightmare for the people living there. On the one hand, I understand why obviously the current tenant trying to break her lease because of this wouldn't want to tell me the details of why the eviction is happening. It's just very upsetting that I was about to move into a scenario that seems like it was a very difficult living situation for reasons outside of the apartment. Little background info. This is my first job and I work at a hotel-type place that also doubles as a restaurant. I mostly do dishes in the kitchen and washing and housekeeping. On Fridays, I do pizzas out in the back of the restaurant in an open area. The pizzas are made by us fresh. We make the dough, make the bases fresh, and put the toppings on and cook them in the wood oven. There's 4 people working pizza nights, me, 2 other boys around my age, and an older lady who usually does the till stuff. That'll be important later. Recently, we got caps made for the pizza crew out the back, and when I put mine on, it didn't fit. I have an oversized head, and it kind of sucks. This is where the story starts. So I'm responsible for rolling out the dough and doing the till stuff when the other lady is busy or not there. So when she needed to go elsewhere, she told me to keep an ear out for the bell for customers. No big deal, right? The station where I roll the dough out is pretty close to the customer podium thing. I'm halfway through rolling out a pizza base when I hear a customer spamming the bell. I go out and try to take her order. Me. Hi, how are you this afternoon? Her. Fine. Do you work here? Me. Yes, I said in a confused tone. Her. Where's your uniform? The people at other local pizza places have uniforms. Me. We are a smaller pizza place. We don't need them as long as we have clean black shirts and appropriate pants, which I was wearing. Her. Can you call somebody else who works here to serve me? Me. I do work here. I was literally just rolling out some pizza bases. If you move your head a bit to the side, you can see me doing it. Her. Looking at me suspiciously, I don't believe you. If you do work here, you wouldn't be working by yourself. Go get someone who can tell me you work here. Me. Okay, fine. I went behind the wall to get the other 2 boys who were working with me, and they both said that I indeed work there. Mind you, they were both wearing the new work caps. Her. Good. Now one of you guys can serve me. At that point, I gave up and went back to rolling out the bases. She went on to order like 20 pizzas. I did a really petty thing and cut her slices really unevenly because screw her. The rest of the night went smoothly, and I even saw a teacher that worked at my school. And as always, he was super nice. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more captivating stories. Share your own experiences, opinions in the comments below, and let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay tuned for more epic tales.